Alright people, so we start off episode 6 back at the Andromeda Confederation, where fake Dr. Hell and MacDonald are having an extremely blurry talk with their queen insect. And it's some pretty typical boring villain dialogue, but then out of nowhere comes a massive twist. MacDonald suddenly gets a huge erection in his brain, revealing that he is the sole survivor of the Hyakki Empire of Demons from Getter Robo G, who were wiped out by the Getter Robo Dragon. It's a massive burst of continuity, and all of a sudden, MacDonald's insane. He's got a freaking horn coming out of his head. It's just pure madness. Cue the theme music. So, after the last episode being focused mostly on Getter Kirik, this episode starts with an overview of Getter Khan, the third Getter unit, which is always kind of a wild card because a lot of them use a typical tank form like the original Getter 3 had, but Khan is apparently more like the Getter Poseidon with a water motif and its unique ability to roll into a big ball. So, meanwhile, they go back to the Saotome Labs where things are pretty shitty. All the Getters have been wrecked in the last battle except the Ark and a single surviving D2. Sho Tachibana from Getter Robo Go shows up, and she's really hardcore. They drop some hardcore backstory that Kamui is the chosen one among the Dinosaur Empire and the humans, and then Sho takes massive control of the situation because the Saotome Laboratory is just straight up fucked. It seems that opening the Getteray Cauldron where the dragon was living caused all the plant life in the area to just grow over the lab at a super accelerated rate, and now the lab looks like it's 1 billion years old. I'm sure all the weapons are kind of screwed, and again, all the Getters have been damaged, except for the Ark in this 1-2. Now, this episode reintroduces some of the non-Getter giant robots in this universe, particularly the Stelbers, which you might remember from Armageddon, because featured in this episode is Schwarzkopf, who was the main Stelber pilot in Armageddon. Anyway, so he's dealing with another one of those giant black balls, which are called Stokers, and there's this huge one in the ocean, and it's like the biggest one ever in history, and it's like the size of New York City. So we go back to the Ark in the middle of the ocean, and I'm not sure if the Ark went back into the ocean, or this whole scene was a flashback, but anyway, so the Navy just starts fighting against the Stoker. And I thought the Ark was going to help out, but apparently it's not. The Navy is fighting the Stoker by itself, which sucks because it has all these weird 4D powers. They fire like 1 billion missiles into it, but then all the shots just disappear and then reappear right behind the Navy's back, shooting them all in the back, sinking all the Navy ships, and the Navy is completely fucked. There's this nice montage that shows you all the bad ways you can die if you're in the Navy. So the point of this episode is don't join the Navy, you're going to die, you're going to drown, you're going to explode, you're going to get entombed in water. Anyway, so Sho has all the Stelbers launch, and then the Stelbers come back to the Saotome Labs to help out the D2, which is by itself. Unfortunately, at this point, a bunch of all these Andromeda robots come out of the black hole, and suddenly there's millions of them, and suddenly the millions of them are fusing together into a giant grunt unit the size of a mountain. So the Stelbers from the Navy fly out to help the last D2 defend the Saotome Labs. And then we get a very typical super robot fight. Now, unfortunately, since this is a giant grunt enemy that is a fusion of thousands of smaller enemies, more and more enemies keep pouring out of the black hole, fusing into it, making it bigger and bigger and bigger. So the super robot army starts to get super demoralized. They start to freak out. They realize that as long as the enemy is pulling the shit, they are invincible. They can't die because more enemies will just show up and refuse together. But Hayato notices there's this weird yin-yang emoji ball that's giving it all its powers. So he has the army attack the yin-yang emoji ball, but then the giant army starts using all these small grunts as kamikaze missiles because fuck them. So Hayato, and a desperate last attempt, thinks that he might release the Getter Dragon from the Hell Cauldron. Except all of a sudden, there's a fucking crack in outer space. And out of this crack in space, we see an eye, we see a face. The wormhole opens up, and something completely crazy comes out of it. It's fucking Shin Getter. But it's not the same Shin Getter that we're used to, it's new. Hayato has this flashback about the Shin Getter being lost in the wormhole, all the pilots going crazy and being like absorbed by the machinery. And I just fucking knew Shin Getter would come back in the way they set it up, but it's not the same. It's Black Shin Getter now. Black Shin Getter, baby. The music changes, and it's all the classic Shin Getter music, and Black Shin Getter is just getting everyone at the lab so psyched up with how hardcore it is, with all its power and how cool it is. Hayato is just blown away by this, and he thinks that maybe his friends are still alive, so he's extremely excited about that. And as it's fucking ripping the grunt monsters to shreds, killing down enemies by the thousands, mowing them down faster than they can regenerate and flood back into the giant monster, Shin Getter whips out the Stoner Sunshine, and as we acknowledge that it is Black Shin Getter now, it disappears. So mysterious, just gone, just like it was in the first place. Hayato is so fucking impressed. Meanwhile, we go back underwater, where the Khan has passed some mysterious things that they say is a gravestone, and then all of a sudden the Ark gets surrounded by cyborg plesiosaurs, and the episode calms down to end on a mysterious setup that the Getter Ark has arrived at the underwater home of the Dinosaur Empire inside a meteor. Alright guys, that episode went straight off the rails, literally straight off the rails. Now, at this point, we're really veering into a new trajectory with the arrival of Black Shin Getter. Now, Black Shin Getter might be new to you guys, but Black Shin Getter was previously an action figure only variant of Shin Getter mixed with Black Getter. So its arrival in the Ark anime foretells some very, very insane changes, some very insane potential revelations coming down the road. And once again, for anyone who's been shitting on me or Shin Getter Armageddon, Armageddon is the fucking most popular Getter series up till now. And if Black Shin Getter is literally the only part of it that makes a direct influence into the series, I am completely satisfied. I mean, I missed that funk rock soundtrack that Shin Getter had, but this episode was fucking amazing. So let me just score up some points in this episode. I'm going to give 1 point for that Getter Robo G callback and McDonald's brain erection. 1 point for Sho Tamaki, making a comeback from Getter Robo Go and being this hardcore, beautiful woman in a suit. 1 point for Schwarz and the Stelbers making their interesting cameo back onto TV. And Black Shin Getter, that gets 3 points because fuck it, that was so cool. That was such a breakthrough of expectations with that insane reveal. And for what it is, that's just something that calls back to Armageddon, but also calls forward the fact that this series is probably going to get a legitimate ending, and at the very least, it's going off the rails in a good way, where we might get some closure. And 1 more point for the Dinosaur Empire, the happiest place on Earth. So that was episode 6, officially off the rails from the manga, officially treading some cool new ground with the introduction of Black Shin Getter. I am very, very happy with this episode. Like, this episode makes it clear that this series is going to draw from whatever Getter media that they feel is cool and that they feel is right. So anything that was on the table in Super Robot Wars, anything that was on the table in Getter Robo Daikisen, it's all back, it can all come back, anything can happen, and I fucking love it. This was a great episode, potentially the greatest episode so far. Yeah, I'm feeling that. Alright, I was me, Buster Green. Please subscribe to my channel. I only need 400 subscribers to get monetized. Laters!